The Boy Wonder, issue 4, Juni Ba on, well, all the things, basically. So, yeah, this is the penultimate issue, I believe. I think this is 5 issues total. And it's an interesting, in that, you know, the past 3 issues were all sort of focused one by one on a different Robin, right? So it was like his relationship with Dick, his relationship with Jason, and Tim. This issue, of course, we've run out of Robins, unless you're going to start doing the Batgirls. And interestingly, at the end, Babs is there in the group shot of the family that he's going back to. So, I mean, maybe they're going to do something with that. I don't know. But next one's the finale, so I'm not expecting it. So here's the question. Like, I assume Damien was the one that was kidnapped at the, you know, in these opening bits. But is it just weird? Does that not look like Damien when the hood comes off?
It's not.
Yeah.
It is. This is someone telling Damien's story. Yeah. Someone that's close to Damien. So, if I had to bet, right?
Yes.
We learned in the first issue that Babs was with child. That
you think this is okay? You think this is Dick and Babs' kid?
Yep, and that he's gonna show up as Robin. Like I feel like they're playing with the Batman Damien type stuff. But I think at the end of this he's going to feel like being Robin is more important, right? Being himself is more important than being the son of the Bat or the son of the Demon, right? And I feel like he's going to show up as a Robin, but we're going to see a grown Damien come and rescue this girl.
It's a wild thing to think that if Babs and Dick have a kid, that Damien then becomes like the Nightwing to that child. It's a really funny, you know, the big brother type character. Anyway, so yeah, it does this sort of thing where it's like, oh, here's the story of Talia in this like story, and how she was made to be like a servant of her father and devote her life to like helping him achieve his goals. And she wanted to be his heir, but she was never going to be his heir because he wanted a boy to be his heir. So, you know, one day she met the Batman, and he was this perfect specimen to be the heir to the throne, but Batman, of course, refused, but did knock her up. So, you know, we get basically this book's version of those events over the first several pages. Yeah. So, and it's nice enough. It does its job.
Well, and Juni Ba does this thing too, where it does feel like a fairy tale because the art matches. There's a kind of, you know, fadedness to the art.
Yeah, and there's like borders on some of the text, because it's not even like text panels. It's like full. Well, it is text panels. It's not text like it's like full panels are just blank with text in them telling the story. So it's more like a picture book than it is a.
Yeah, picture book. That's the perfect way, and we get that, and you know, and we get that the Rock demon had told her, you know, that she's gonna go through these trials and to keep this cup, and each of her things that she goes through with Roz or Batman and Damien are a piece of that trial. So we kind of, they use that piece of the story to inform what happens later in this issue.
Yeah, I think that stuff was good. I was relieved though when it wasn't the whole issue. Like when it actually got to like, oh, we're picking up where the last story left off after the first 4 or 5 pages. I was like, okay, good, because that would have been too much. If the entire issue was just retelling the story of how, like, you know, Talia gave birth to him and like his early years, I'd be like, okay, we're kind of just retreading the same old ground again. Yeah,
well, and because it's kind of that faded kind of art, right, that makes it feel older. When you turn the page and we're in the Lazarus Pit room and everything's green, it feels like we've entered back into the real world from where we were.
Because the last issue ended with Damien sort of like realizing Raz was behind all this, and they went through the portal to wherever, Nana Parbat, maybe, I don't know, wherever Raz's palace is in this universe. So yeah, like, you know, Raz is like, fight me, boy. You know, you've betrayed us. You've been with the Bat and all that. And Damien's like, I don't kill it anymore, but he does pick up the sword to defend himself, and the action does look really good, actually. Once once those swords clash, it's very simplistic, but like Juni Ba is really good with the layouts, really knows how to make all this thing. And Raz always being in complete silhouette with his head and just having the big sort of horns looking, you know, demon look, very good. But yeah, Damien's like begging his mother to like help at one point, and she's just kind of like quietly ignoring him, and it's kind of sad and tragic and all the rest of it. And Raz goes full demon and the head gets big and all the rest of it, saying he's disappointed in Damien. It's a whole big thing. So the big thing in this issue, though, other than just the setting up that all these bodies that have been getting stolen are to help fuel the Lazarus pit, and that Raz's plan is to actually just take Damien's body and possess him effectively, so that he now has a new, because after all these centuries being resurrected, his body's finally starting to age and not really take to it, but it's affecting his mind. So
yeah, I always love that aspect of the Lazarus Pit lore. That the more you use it, the more unhinged you become. And it really sets up a crazier Roz where he kind of started with noble intentions to preserve the Earth, and now he's just like, well, we need a mass genocide to preserve the Earth.
Well, that's the thing. Talia bought into his goals, but here when he reveals what his plan is for Damien, she's like, wait a minute, this isn't the plan. Like the plan is more important than any individual, but now it seems like Raz cares more about himself. Despite what he's saying, this is more about his own power persevering and him sticking around. But Damien effectively falls into the pit, and they kind of treat this like a... I don't know. I don't even know what you call this, but he treats this pit like a magical subconscious place where he starts hearing this voice, and we don't know who's talking to him for a lot of these pages, where it's in pitch black, and you've just got this text appearing, and it later turns out to be the guy who Damien killed. The thug whose head he cut off, and this is all playing out, and he's seeing more of his past, and Talia comes in to help him survive against the assassins that come down to try and kill him. So it's all taking place kind of in the Lazarus water, I guess, is what they're going for here. And it's like he has this near-death experience where he's able to communicate with the person he killed, who's chastising him, who's criticizing things. Remember what you did, remember, what all this is. And then Damien runs into his nanny, who was killed to cover up that Damien broke a vase that belonged to Ra's al Ghul. And it's like, you still feel guilt over this, but you shouldn't. He served his purpose. But you find out the nanny was kind of happy to sacrifice himself because he hoped that one day Damien would get away from this life and he'd become something better. And it's like, oh, that's kind of what's happened to an extent. I mean, obviously he's still in this place where he's like, oh, I was supposed to be the son of the demon, or the grandchild of the demon, and then I was supposed to be the son of the bat, and maybe he just tried to prove himself to Batman because he failed in his task to prove himself to Raz. Is he just replacing one father figure to look up to and prove himself to than the other? And a big part of this story is ultimately the end here when the voice reveals itself to be the guy whose head he cut off. And the art here is really good actually because he's holding his own head, so it's got a very kind of otherworldly, sort of feel to it. It's good.
And we get a lot of the motif. The people that are constantly at odds with Damien have these very angled, right? So the Rock had the chin, kind of like the beard angle too. Like this guy has. Roz and Talia both kind of have the horns, right? So there's very angular beings, and so when it reveals itself here, and the guy's holding his own head, it's a stark visual. Yeah.
It's very pulpy because of the art style, but it does work really well. And basically, it's like, hey, I bet you don't even know my name. And Damien's like, yeah, I do. And he names him. He even says, I looked you up. You've got 2 kids. This is where you live. This is what you were. You were trying to get out of the life of crime to build a better life for your kid. And he's like, yeah, I've thought about you every single day. But he's like, I'm sorry, I really am. But there's a little moment here where he thinks about stuff the other Robins told him, and they're all color coded. So the Nightwing quote's in blue, the Jason one's in red, and the Tim one's in orange, which isn't really his color, but we've already used blue and red. So what else are we going to use?
Yeah, why not orange for Red Robin?
Yeah. So yeah, basically says, hey, please let me go and protect more people. Let me go and give me the chance to keep caring and keep redefining what I am, and I'm not just what Raz wanted me to be or what even Batman wants me to be. And he agrees. He says, I will be watching. You get a big full page with that big text saying, I will be watching, as an ominous voice saying, and to me what I was reading from this is that, yeah, this memory and guilt of what he's done to this man is always going to be with him. It's never going away. It's always going to be lingering.
Yeah, this is Damien's conscience.
Yeah. And Talia gets pissed because, Damien says, hey, you left me. And she's like, you sound a lot like your father. And he's like, well, it was bound to happen because you're the one that dumped me with him.
Yeah, because you left me. She goes, I'm here now. Not the point. You sound a lot like your father. It's bound to happen. You gave me up to him. And then she has nothing to say.
Yeah. I mean, the last couple pages are really good and are the real strength of this issue, because it's basically as Damien's like going away over to like, the exit, and he sees like an image of the family that he's going back to, and it's the three Robins plus Babs.
Yeah.
Like basically Talia kind of like, you know, it's a third person narration, but the third person narration basically says that she, you know, she's not really sure about a lot of this or how to feel about like what Damien is or what he's doing, but she also feels something she never thought she would feel or didn't know she could feel, which is a sense of pride. Like the way he just stood up to her and the way that he's standing up to Raz and even Batman and trying to be his own thing is making her feel proud as a mother, and it's something she couldn't predict coming. And it's a really interesting little thing, and this like final feeling that it describes in the last page is that she's even hoping that he'll feel proud one day too, like, you know, he deserves to feel pride, and it's something that up until now she's never felt, because she's so been obsessed with just doing something for Raz. She's been a puppet for his games and never her own person, and she's kind of in too deep to really just change that now. Like she's too tied to it, but Damien's breaking out of it, and maybe she didn't realize she wanted that for him, but now that it's happening, she's like, oh, I'm actually kind of proud that he's doing this.
She sees the potential there, right?
Yeah.
She never got to be her own person, right? She had to be the hand of the demon, right? And now Damien is broken from that cycle, and now she's proud of him for it. You know, because he gets to be everything that she couldn't be.
It's so funny because the first few pages of this are fine, but I was like, oh, this is probably my least favorite issue just because of what it is. And then by the end, I'm like, oh no, this may have hit the hardest, like, emotional beat of the whole thing.
It's very much hero's journey type stuff too, right? Where he's here, he's in the belly of the beast, and he works his way back out stronger than he was before, right? And now he has this self-actualization where, you know, he wants to be a Robin. That's what that final page tells me here, right? Because that's to, you know, minus Babs or whatever. That's where he's going towards.
Yeah, I think it's interesting he doesn't see Batman. He sees all of the other characters. And I don't think it's because he's, you know, like he's not going to have a relationship with Batman, but I think it says something to me that all of those Bat family members didn't join and start doing what they do for Batman. They all had their own reasons for doing what they do that, you know, obviously connects them to Batman, but it wasn't like to serve his purpose. They were inspired by him, perhaps, or they were taken under his wing because they were lost and like needed guidance of some kind. But it's interesting that Damien sees like inspiration in them for what they are and what they've become in different ways. So yeah, by the end of this issue, I thought it was hitting some really just some home run little beats for Damien that, you know, I think like I feel like Juni went into this with a really strong sense of like what he wanted to say about Damien as a character.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very good.
And it's kind of doing the early Morrison stuff where we get Morrison dropping off Damien in Batman and Son, and then we get the plot points from Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul, which were, you know, that he saw Damien as you know, that's a body that he can inhibit and then live even longer. Yeah, as the vessel. There you go. And so, and Juni Ba condensed those two stories into this, you know, 5-issue, and it works out really well. So
yeah, the emphasis on his relationship with the other Robins though is really interesting, and it paints it in a very different light compared to that.
I think that's the key. Yeah, that's the key here, is that he's working to be something that's not Bat or a demon, right? He's working, and that really resonates with the, you know, him wanting to be his own person in the way that his mother couldn't be. So yeah, just everything's very well thought out, and for something that feels sometimes like a kid's book, it has some very not mature themes, and that they're for the, you know, for adults, but there's stuff that you wouldn't expect in a children's book.
Yeah, because it's not really a kid's book, but the art kind of deceives you into maybe assuming it is, just because it is a very kid style sort of art style. But yeah, no, it's been a really nice surprise, this book. It's a very easy read as well. Like, you know, it flows wonderfully. You know, the art's not always 100% to my taste, depending on what it's doing, but anytime like it's doing action, or anytime it's just doing Damien or Raz, where it's doing the silhouettes or like the faces in shadow or anything like that, like it really nails that stuff in the mood during that. So really good.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, what are you rating The Boy Wonder?
8.5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tempted to even go to the 9, to be honest. I
Oof.
think I'm going to say 8.5 as well. Maybe just those first few pages, just dipping me down below the 9. But it's honestly, by the end, it really felt like it was hitting some really high notes for me.